Go. Hello and welcome to the Mastermind, Body, and Spirit Show. I'm your host, Matt Belair. Today's guest is a Super Bowl champion and a 10-year veteran of the NFL. He played left tackle for the Denver Broncos Super Bowl 50 championship year. He played college football at the University of Notre Dame, where he graduated with 2 degrees, one in economics and policy and the other in political science. He is a practicing Muslim and currently resides with his family in Denver, Colorado. Off the field, he believes that together we can change the world. He believes that it is our right to be extraordinary, that when we embrace that right, we create positive change in the world, and through our commitment to educate ourselves, invest in our communities, and act on our passions, real change happens. He is the best-selling author of the new book, Mindset for Mastery, an NFL champion's guide to reaching your greatness. Welcome to the show, Ryan Harris.
Man, I feel like I just entered the boxing ring or something, man. You know, or something. You know, hey, man, it's an honor to share this space with you, brother.
Yeah, man. Yeah, me too. And I got so excited reading your bio and when you'd reached out just because of the work you're doing. Obviously, there's synergies of the work that I'm trying to do as an athlete. And we had a very brief discussion before, but I'm just so happy that somebody who's, made it to the pinnacle, an NFL champion, so many millions of kids' dreams, is writing a book about mindset and what's the important part about it. So thank you so much for coming on. Why don't you give the audience a little bit of background of like who you are and how you got to where you are today? Yeah,
well, I am Ryan Harris, the aforementioned introduced, but from St. Paul, Minnesota originally, went to the University of Notre Dame, played 4 years there, got 2 degrees in 3.5 years, got drafted by the Denver Broncos in 2007, got fired by the Denver Broncos in 2011, then went to play for the Houston Texans for 2 years, the Kansas City Chiefs for a year, and then came back to the Broncos with Gary Kubiak, who was then at the time the coach with the Texans when I was there, and then finished up after we won Super Bowl 50 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So wrapped up a 10-year NFL career. And now, as you mentioned, I'm a best-selling author. I'm also a broadcaster. I have a sports talk show here in Denver, weekdays 10 to 2. Search Harris, Hastings, and Dover and click to subscribe on iTunes podcast. But also do stuff. I'm the Notre Dame football radio analyst, so I'll be at the Cotton Bowl doing that. So you can tune in there as well. And I do a lot of post-game for CBS here, Altitude TV, and Fox 31 here in Denver.
Holy crap, man, that's a lot. So why don't we start about I don't know where to start. Like probably, I guess, what your book, like what the inspiration behind the book was, and what's it all about, what's in there.
Yeah, for me, and maybe you've read this book too, the Book of 5 Rings. It really had a tremendous impact on me in my life and career. And just the other books that I've read, The Alchemist, things like that, the Quran, other books that really changed my life. I've known and experienced the power of books. And one of the things for me in becoming a Super Bowl champion, man, I want people to have that moment in their life, whether it's personally or in their business. And I thought that through writing the book, one of the things with athletes, as you know, people think we don't fail. And athletes practice failure all the time. And I always say we talk about failure less than we talk about sex. So I talk about my failures, how I overcame them, and it was all through my mindset and choosing people were wrong, choosing I didn't have the right people around me, choosing and recognizing distractions, and being clear about what I want. And so I wanted to share those experiences with the world to encourage at least one person to go for it when it doesn't seem like they're supposed to make it, or to go for it after an injury, or to recover after their surgery. So I really wanted to encourage just one person to be their best. And thankfully, I've already been able to do so through the book, Mindset for Mastery.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, I totally resonate with that. And one of the things that has kind of come up for me with coaching and coaching high-level athletes is trying to get to that space where you're complete, whole, like full of just like self-worth and value as you go through the journey. I use the example of Alexander Ovechkin, who's a hockey player, one of the greatest hockey players in the modern era, and it took him forever to win a Stanley Cup. Yep. Then he won the Stanley Cup, right? He got to that pinnacle, and that's maybe like a 2-week process, maybe a month, right, if you draw it out, but you win, and then you got to go back to the day-to-day. You got to go back to the family. You got to go back to the process. You got to go back to that thing. So you kind of have this goal of whatever it is, if it's entrepreneurship, sport, getting a wife, whatever the case is, it's once you get there, it's fleeting. And it's more about like, how can you go through that process and deal with failure? So maybe you can touch on some of the things that either you experienced or even just the value of failure, because I think that reframing how we feel about failure is super important. In skateboarding, it's all failure. You try like 1,000 kickflips and then you get one. You're like, yes, got one.
Yeah. I still believe I can do a kickflip to this day. But yeah, you know your first kickflip, then all of a sudden it's an expectation. You're like, oh crap, right? But well, I'd start with life, like you mentioned, because it's about failing in life too. I mean, before I met my wife, I had failed at finding someone that I really enjoyed and was happy myself with. You know what I mean? I was my best self, and I could be around this person. So I'm so glad that I didn't just succumb to failure and not ask my wife out on a date. You know what I mean? Because I'd yet to find love at that moment. I think my kids are happy about that too. You know what I mean? So failure's all around us in life. You can watch any NFL football game this weekend. There's going to be failure. And that's the part we love, right? The underdog, the comeback story, the Super Bowl championship, where the Patriots came back from down 27 in the fourth quarter. We love these stories, and it's because of the failure we get to see. And one of the things, one of the big failures in my life and my career was in my 5th year of the NFL. I had a coach who wanted me to do some new things, try some new things, and I was unwilling. I was arrogant. I thought I knew how to play football. I thought I was the best player I could ever be, and I didn't need any improvement. And as you can imagine, I got fired. And, I'd never been more embarrassed in my life. I had family coming to town 2 weeks later to see the first game. How am I going home to my wife and telling her in our first year of marriage, I lost my job because I was arrogant? How do I tell my friends I lost my job because I was unwilling? And I had tears in my eyes and my hands were just shaking in disbelief as I was driving away from the Broncos facility. And I'm big with my mindset. I built my mindset through the words, I am, I can, I will. And I decided in those moments, driving home, I am a good husband without being a Denver Bronco. I can be a great husband without being a Denver Bronco. I can make sure I never lose my job again because of my unwillingness to work. I can make sure I'm never lazy and arrogant again. I will make sure that the next opportunity I make, I will do everything I can. And sure enough, the next morning I got a call by Gary Kubiak, who was then the coach of Houston Texans. And he said, hey, Ryan, I think you can help us win. Why don't you come on down here and play for the Texans? I can do that, coach. And I got down there and I did what I said I will do. And I asked more questions. I studied more film. I lifted more. I practiced my technique. And because of that, I got a call 2 years later from Gary Kubiak, who was back with the Denver Broncos, the team who had released me. And he said, Ryan, I think you can help us win a championship. And I need you to come in here and show these young guys how to work. And I said, I can do that, coach. And I went to partake in one of the best years of my entire career, winning Super Bowl 50, winning it a year after I had played and started in 16 games with the Kansas City Chiefs, and they told me I had no football left. And I chose in my mind that they were wrong, and I went out and won a Super Bowl and then went to play with the Pittsburgh Steelers, a storied franchise. And so that's just one example, two examples of the failures that I've overcame and worked through. And there are many, many more, as you know as well.
Man, holy crap. You touched on so much there that I want to dive into. But I think first and most importantly, let's see that. Is that your Super Bowl ring? I think we should have a look. Oh man, congrats. Yeah, a very good friend of mine, Anthony Magicomo, he won a CFL championship. So, I got to see his ring and all that. So it's a super incredible accomplishment. So, you touched on a lot there. And I think that where I want to go with it is like, the first part is like, how do you overcome that like rejection? Like because think about younger, right? When you're in little league and it doesn't matter where the process is, there's going to be factors outside of you that tell you you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not fast enough. And I can't remember where I heard it. I think it was on a podcast. Someone was asking Arnold Schwarzenegger what the difference between a champion was and somebody who wasn't. He's like, a champion is someone who's willing to go past the pain. Go past that rejection, in skateboarding, it's such a good example for me because if you look at how most of them, how many times it takes to land that one trick for that 3-part, they might try 30 times, 100 times sometimes. It's ridiculous. And so it's just like failure is not permanent. You fail when you give up. There's a great Bruce Lee quote as well something like there is no failure. It's just when you stop trying, something along those lines. So
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could speak on that.
Yeah, one of my great friends and former teammate, John Carlson, says it best: failure is not fatal. And that's a decision you have to make, though. You know what I mean? Because unfortunately, I think a lot of times we want to try and fail and say it didn't work, right? Well, I wanted to become a broadcaster, but I couldn't get a job where I wanted to be, so it wasn't for me. Like, I read the signs and the tea leaves and was like, well, did you give the effort? And one of the things that kept me through those times that I experienced too, like you said, I'm not good enough, I'm not fast enough, and sometimes it's people that try and tell you that. I remember being a high school athlete. I'm a sophomore, and they said, all right, we're getting in line. Well, I said, I can get in the front of the line, and they'd elbow me back. In my freshman year at Notre Dame, I got in a fight the first night because they wanted to push me back in line in the snack line. Yes, I'm a lineman. We eat. So, okay, a lot of fights happen around food. But I placed myself there. I from an early age, I didn't care about failing. I cared about being the best I could be. And one of the phrases that really helps me in times of failure, in times of self-doubt, is the phrase, I can. Because one of the things in the NFL, when you get your hands knocked down by a pass rusher or you give up a sack, it's easy to say, what happened? Like, what did I do wrong? Like, where was the mistake? That's all in the past, right? But instead you say, okay, what can I do next time? So Terrell Suggs knocked down my arms. Okay, well, next time I can make sure to change up my hand punch and do one at a time, or I can flash them and then hit them real quick. Now I'm taking action. Now I'm seeing opportunity. Now I have a willingness. So I always encourage people wherever they're at, and whatever time, whether it's being sick for a week or if it's trying to go for that job and losing it, what can you do? What can you do? And I just, retired woman I talked to lately, she was an older woman. She said, I want to get a job, but I don't know what I can do. And I said, well, what can you do to get a job? So she went to these, seminars on teaching how to make a resume, on language that we're using in the workplace now, on how to use Zoom, you know what I'm saying, on how to send an email and create your email signature. So I can always help me find the things I can do, the pieces of my game I was missing, and the belief that I didn't even have in myself sometimes.
Man, yeah. So important and so on point. It makes me think about, when I started to try to teach people about the Zen Athlete book, it was like the principles of what it was, the mindset necessary to not give up, to give your best opportunity and things like that, and how to teach it to kids. And as much as I could boil it down was teaching a kid to shoot a free throw shot. First step is to clear your mind, take in 3 deep breaths, because it's a fundamental shift in consciousness, whether you can stop that internal chatter, because a lot of the time it's not even the external world. It's you being a total knob to yourself.
100%.
You giving yourself that crap. So you got to be able to shut that off. Second thing is to visualize the shot going in. And this tells people that you influence your reality. You might not, right? Just like you're saying, what I can do this. These are things I can do. And then the third thing is you might miss that shot. Failure is a part of it. What's the most powerful and positive perspective you can have in that situation? And these 3 fundamentals, most children don't have, but I think it's mandatory if you're going to be at an elite level, just to say, hey, this failure is just an opportunity to grow. Every martial artist know that failure is a part of it, and you learn, just like, when you're talking about getting fired and coming back even stronger than that. Yeah. And so you can add on to that if you want, because I have a follow-up question.
Yeah, well, I mean, and what you're talking about, I always tell people is process. How you catch a football is no different than how you catch a game-winning catch, how you make a game-winning block. What's the process there? And once you start going into that process, you turn off that internal noise. Okay, on a reach block, I'm going to take a left step, right step, throw my hips upfield, find my target, strike it with all my might, reset my hips, and go upfield. Is that the game-winning block or a zone block? It doesn't matter as long as you're in the process. So I'm with you 100% of that. And that's whether you're an athlete or just somebody going through life. What's the process that you're going through to get yourself out of your own mind?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, all of these tools, like your book, I'm really excited to read it. I'd love an autographed copy. I'm going to hit you up after that
on the way, brother. I got you.
Yes. Thank you, man. And, I'm excited. And the book, 11 rings. So many.
The book of 5 rings, but then Phil Jackson also had a great book, The 11 Rings of Success.
That's also a good. Okay, I thought you meant the Phil Jackson one first. The Book of 5 Rings. That's about the samurai.
Miyamoto Musashi. Yeah, man.
Oh, that's what you're talking about. Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Love it. Also a good book. shoot, I lost my train of thought. We were going there, but okay, we'll go with this. We were talking about this a little bit earlier about, we're on the planet, right? It's really great. When we're young, we want all the money, we want the cars, right? We want the NFL championship. We want the spinning rims, whatever the crap we want. And that's what we're moving through life. And we're high school, we're trying to figure out who we are, right? Then when you're out of college, you're like, oh crap, how do I make some money so I can drive around and have a roof over my head? Lots of stress going on. So with sport, I think there's a massive opportunity to kind of empower youth and people around the world with like a little bit of a real mindset. And also you touched a little bit on it where you came in as a veteran, and they do this a lot in all sports. Who is the old guy, the captain that shows all the young guys, this is what it's about. This is how you conduct yourself. It's there's this element of it. And I don't know how real the show Ballers is, but
it's pretty real.
That's
Ballers and Any Given Sunday are about the closest football things you could see. I mean, those are real depictions.
I'm blanking on his name, but I had worked with another NFL athlete for a little bit, amazing guy, and he had told me that. He's just like, yeah, Ballers is pretty accurate. But I'm wondering if you can touch on just what it is to mean, like, what are you empowering the young guys with as a veteran? Like, what does that mean to be like the captain or the way shower in a sense? And how do you feel we have an opportunity as the athletes and sport, the power of sport in general, to positively impact the world?
Well, I love what you call it, a way shower, because one of the things, and I talk about it in Mindset for Mastery, is with leadership, you cannot lead by example. You leave out so much context and so much failure, right? One of the things is we won the Super Bowl. I was a 9-year veteran. Those guys thought I'd always had it together. Well, no, I didn't. And one of our players was struggling mightily. And instead of ridiculing him and trying to embarrass him, which is what a lot of people do, rarely do we perform in that type of environment. I went up to him and I said, hey, listen, man, I used to make 3 to 4 mistakes a game. And then I started feverishly taking notes. I took notes on the schedule, anything coach said, and I would review it Wednesday night. Then I'd take notes on Thursday, and I'd review Wednesday and Thursday's notes again. And then Friday, I'd give myself a break. And Saturday, I wouldn't even turn on my TV because I just was reviewing notes, going to bed early. And wouldn't you know, the very next day, the young man had a notebook and 3 pens taking down notes, right? You got to lead with an example. And one of the things I always did as a veteran too, I told cats, eliminate the distractions. You've got to learn to eliminate distractions. One of the things that happens when you're in the NFL is you get people that want to come in on a Friday night. Hey, I'm coming in out of town to Denver Friday night. Where we eating dinner? What we doing? Woo, woo. Well, in the NFL, Friday night's my Wednesday, right? So, I mean, because I'm playing on Sunday. So it took me time to tell those people around me, hey, listen, you want to come in, you can come in on a Saturday when I'm right, and we can meet right before I leave for the hotel. And then you want to hang out, let's hang out to stay till Monday. Well, 99% of people don't want to stay till Monday, and that's fine because that was a distraction for me. We can hang out any Friday night of the week outside of the season. Just because it's your vacation doesn't mean I'm not trying to win a championship. And you got to learn how to recognize distraction. Who are distractions in your life? What are distractions in your life? When are certain things distractions in your life? I love vacations, but it's not time to take a vacation all the time, right? But there are times for a vacation. And I also tell guys, why is this a distraction for you? Why are your video games a distraction for you? Why is smoking weed every night a distraction for you being your best player? I mean, are you trying to handle anxiety? Are you trying to go get away from the responsibilities you have? That's, as long as you understand it, you know what I mean? Now we're talking about performance. Now we're talking about why you're doing what you're doing, and you're changing your consciousness around that already. So I always try to lead with an example for guys, and I always try to show them how to recognize distractions.
Yeah, man, I think that's a huge one. And I can relate being in Whistler, and I was there for 8 years traveling the world snowboarding. It was incredibly amazing, but it got to the point where I needed something else, and there was just too much around. So I knew myself, and I had to remove myself from that environment. And I just want to kind of go back. I remember what I wanted to share about like the failure piece and what we do as athletes and human beings. Let's say you're a tennis player or a football player, you drop the pass. What we do is we repeat that in our mind to beat ourselves up. In snowboarding, you can't do that. If I fall on a backflip bad, it goes in my mind and I replay. Fear comes in, I start to get stressed, and that's what I'm focusing on. The basics of law of attraction is whatever I give my attention, energy, or focus to, I get more of. So if I say, don't think about a pink panda, or don't imagine a cute yellow kitty. Your mind has to go do that. So when you're doing that, not only are you getting more stressed out, you're gonna not perform, because you have to perform at ease. When you're fighting, or you're a snowboarder or extreme sports athlete, you need to be loose when you're gonna do something crazy, like confident and loose. So the second you drop the ball, just, okay, cool, you dropped it, replay it in your mind and look at how it was supposed to go. So if I fall on a backflip, I replay it in my mind on the chairlift. How is it supposed to go? This is what it is. I can do it this way. Exactly what you were talking about before. And if people just take that little mindset with everything they do in their life, it's going to be a huge upgrade, because you're spending more time in imagining and creating the future that you prefer, rather than dwelling on something that happened and beating the crap out of yourself for the rest of the day for it, or the rest of the game.
Well, and you mentioned something else in there too, visualization, right? I am huge on visualization. You build new neural pathways. And that's why so many of your favorite athletes can give a great interview after they're done winning the biggest game of their life, because they've seen it. They've been there. And the night before the Super Bowl, I was dreaming about raising the trophy, one of the goals I wrote down. And I visualized raising that trophy. But for whatever reason, I could only see it from the bottom up, which was weird, because I'd never really seen the Lombardi trophy like that, what they give you when you win the Super Bowl. And sure enough, the next night, Peyton Manning hands me down the Super Bowl trophy, and there I'm seeing it from the bottom up. And I'm just out of my mind thinking, I've seen this before, I've been here before. But that's what happens with visualization. You get to see your success before you achieve it, and you get to remove some of those negative thoughts and build in the belief because of that visualization.
Yeah, 100%. And in sport, like you played football or professional sport to the highest level. This becomes a necessity, and it's available to everyone, but we don't have that like necessity where like we have this opportunity, but the inspiration or goal isn't meaningful enough for us to overcome those failures. So little tiny bumps will set us back. But when it's meaningful enough, you could have the greatest hurdle and you're going to get over it, because you're just going to chip away until you get there. So visualization and overcoming failure is available to everyone. This mindset's available to everyone. It's actually not that complicated, right? When you break it down, it's just that willingness to do it. And no matter where you are in your life, if you apply these things, your mindset's going to be so much greater than like the average, let's say, status quo, because you're applying things that aren't generally normal. And that's why with the Zen Athlete or the podcast is just to make some of these concepts about, rather than beating yourself up, learn from it. And then what do you want? And making that mainstream, because it changes your performance in sport. It's very direct, but in your life, it's going to change your life.
Yeah, it changes the world, and it's a choice, right? I mean, our mindset's a choice we make every day. I could tell you, I woke up this morning, took my kids to school, and came to work at the radio station, and now I'm on a podcast. Or I could tell you, man, I woke up this morning, got to take my kids to school. We had some quality time. We listened to some holiday tunes on the way. It was lunch bunch, so I packed them a nice little lunch, told them to get a little treat, because I like treats myself. Then I got to go to work, humanize and educate people about the game they love. And then I get to meet my guy, man, whose podcast that I've loved, man, for so long. And it's an honor to be on it. I mean, what's different about what happened in that day other than the way I chose to look at it? And that's the big thing with mindset that I tell people. You choose your mindset every day. You choose, after you mess up that backflip on the snowboard, whether you're going to go for it again. And if you're going to go for it again, what choice do you have but to be confident? You know, and I always think about my favorite quote from Muhammad Ali. I am the greatest. I called myself that before I knew I was. Everybody has self-doubt, and champions just choose to overcome it. And everybody has the ability to make that choice.
That's amazing, man. I love that. It's so true. And I think that there's a misconception where athletes or champions or things like that, it's like all easy. You know, they really need to get more of those behind the scenes of how challenging it is. And it's all of our own process. And, you know, I think to go like one step deeper, you could see in the NFL where, or acting, like Jim Carrey said, I wish everybody could be rich and famous, so they know that's not the answer. so many
Right.
young people today are trying to get to that goal of what you've achieved. And everybody that gets there, if they were unhappy and unfulfilled before they got there, that thing, getting the NFL, getting that $1 million contract, it doesn't change anything. You just have a different experience in a different car with a different logo on it. You know what I mean? It's like you feel real
With
cool
more
in a Ferrari
friends
for a
that
minute.
suck, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah,
But
man. So go ahead.
the greatest athletes I've been around, and I tell young players all the time, you want to be great or you want to be famous? You want to be famous, you might get to achieve what you want. It'll be short-lived because how can you capture fame, right? You want to be known for playing football, or do you want to be great at playing football so people know that's what you do? You know, I mean, there's going to be fame you can't even think of if you go for being great. But so many young cats, they want to be famous. You know, one of the first-round draft picks, DeAndre I'm going to say his name wrong, Ayton. He's with the Phoenix Suns. And he said, I'm not a basketball player. I'm an entertainer. I'm like, well, who wants an entertainer as a basketball player? You want a champion, right? Did Michael Jordan care about entertaining people? No. Was he entertaining when he was kicking tail left and right? Absolutely. Is Steph Curry worried about you having a good time in the stands when he shoots a three, or is he trying to put a dagger in his opponent, and that's what you see when he's doing that? It's a very different way to live life and to perform, and you got to just go for being great. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree and resonate with that. And I think it goes like, for me, having the martial arts background and things like that, it's like when I'm teaching an athlete specifically, if they choke, they know when we are interviewing, I know for sure what it's going to come down to is probably self-worth, not being good enough, not being valued. So they'll get to that point, and if you don't build that up, like you got to be worthy of, like, so I use this in that example on the podcast a lot. If you're LeBron James and or whoever you are, and you got that moment where it's like, okay, the play's coming to you, and everything is on the line. The NFL championship, the NBA championship. It's one free throw. Nobody's blocking you. You know what I mean? Just a catch. You're wide open. Mm-hmm. If you're about to do that, and you as a human being are whole and harmonious and value yourself, and you know what? Like, I'm an amazing person and I play a game for a living, or I'm an entrepreneur, but who I am is solid. I'm freaking awesome. And I want to make this catch. This is my intention. I'm going to make it with like one finger, and it'll be heroic if I have to. But you're doing it with no stress hormones, because your self-worth and your identity is not on the line. And when your identity of you being the best is there, you are now stressed. You cannot help that stress going to happen. And so if you can do both, it's the optimal performance. And in martial arts, it forces this, because you can't go into a fight rigid. You can't. You have to be smooth and adapt and like be aware. It's not like grunt, you know what I mean? Like deadlift as much as you can. It's one force and you will it, you know what I mean? It's like this balance of surrender and intention. And then also the letting go. You know, so LeBron's up there, you're about to miss it. You miss the ball and you frig it up. Shit. You're not going to feel great, right? But you go over and you're like, oh man, and you can hug your team. You go back to your family. You're doing good in the community. You know what I mean? That's a part of you, but not all of you. And one good example I find is PK Subban, professional hockey player, right?
Man. Man.
He's so great. And win or lose, he's like, I don't know if it was the conference finals I think it was the conference finals, and he loses game 7, and he just gives the best speech. You know, he's like, man, we played so good. I really wanted to win, right? He is so passionate about hockey, but he's like, hats off to the other guys. You know what I mean? He's aware of like the whole thing, donates to hospitals, and it's just, he has a good life. And he, as an expression of himself, is one of the best hockey players in the world. And so you, as an expression of yourself as an athlete, can be that, but you're also more than that. Who are you at 60, right? And so who can you be while you go through that process? Be the best you. I'm going to drop it there. Just give it back to you because I'm going on.
No, man, 100%, man. And it comes down to belief. And after losing game 7, what choice do you have? I mean, and we understand when people cry, because it does mean that much to them and whatever your reaction is, but you lose belief that you'll be back, and similarly in retirement, that changes for guys. You know what I mean? It changed for me of, hey, I know what it takes to get this done. And you know what? That's not meaningful to me anymore. That's not my That's not where I want to live my life anymore. And at the same time, that takes you out. And I looked at Derek Jeter's quote, in my retirement. I was like, what other athletes have kind of gone through retirement? Derek Jeter said, hey, if you could drop me into the World Series, I'd be happy to come back and play. But I know everything it takes to get there. And the same way people say, do you miss the game? I say, hell no. I know what it takes to get up on a Monday morning after a Sunday game. I know what it takes to get in on a Tuesday morning at 4 a.m. because you had a Monday night game on the East Coast, and then come in and get some workout in at 11. I know what that life's like. I know what it's like to feel like your whole world's ending because you lost the game, but then you get the opportunity to win next week. I know everything that goes into it. I know that every practice I'm going to be out there 15 minutes early to work on my technique that I use on a daily basis. I know I'm going to put extra time in away from my family. I just celebrated my third Thanksgiving of my life, because otherwise you have a 6 a.m. practice and then you're done at 2 and you go see your family, and 1, your mind is still on the game, but 2, you're exhausted already. You had practice, sometimes a padded practice. So I'm enjoying Thanksgiving now. So it's all these things that I know what it takes, and it commands so much of you. But that's, like you said, how you can give your whole self. You can be your best self without putting that stress on you, because that's what you want to do, and that's what you dedicate your technique and your efforts towards.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I love all that. And that's what I think it's about, really, is like giving your best effort. In a team sport, it's less as finite as like snowboarding or extreme sports. It's like, it's just you, but just give your best effort. And that's all you can intend to do. I can only intend to land a backflip. I can only intend to land a double backflip. But when I go home, the person I am is beyond that achieve, what I mean? That thing I'm trying to be, the best snowboarder, best martial artist, whatever. It's a huge part of what I'm doing, but doing it with a bit of a wider scope, I think is really important. And what I was curious about is wondering if you could give some of your advice to up-and-coming athletes, people listening to you, they're looking up to you, they want to be an NFL champion. And also, I know that a lot of athletes have trouble retiring. You know what I mean? That's what everything they did, that's what their focus was, and now it's gone. And there's like, oh, shit, what do I do now?
Yeah. Well, I think for the first thing, for young athletes coming up, forget everybody else. No one believed I would play in the NFL before I did. Not a single person. People laughed at me. I didn't have friends because of it. In college, I didn't have friends because of it. In high school, I really didn't have a whole bunch of friends throughout the first NFL years because I was on some different shit. When I was in college, I didn't care about partying, because I'll tell you what, as much as you love partying, let me tell you, the best parties you can go to are after you win a Super Bowl. Okay, so what kind of parties do you want to go to? Decide right now. You want to go and share a bottle of a favorite cheap drink with your friends? Great. You want to get some of the best steak of your life and have a nightclub introduce you and your teammates, and Rick Ross came and did a special concert for us after we won the Super Bowl? I mean, what kind of partying do you want to do? And it takes different levels to get there. So for young athletes, forget everybody else. But the other thing I'll tell young athletes is the game owes you nothing. The athletes that I see that waste their talent are athletes that think, when I put in time, that when I went to work out at 8 a.m. after my high school graduation, they think that you're owed something for that. The game does not owe you anything. You're not owed for the work you put in. You put in the work to be as great as you can be, and at the end of the day, if that's not good enough, you go back and you work harder or you move on. But don't ever mistake the fact that this game or whatever life or whatever business you choose owes you something, because it doesn't. Get that out of your mind right away. So forget everybody else, and don't ever look for a receipt on the payments you put in, because you're just making a deposits on your dreams and you can't get those back. So I tell people that, young athletes, just go for it. And in terms of retirement, it's hard. It's hard to retire, and it's hard to leave your identity. One of the things I had to deal with in retirement, how do I handle, an argument without a fist fight? In the NFL, Matt, if you were a habitual line stepper, I would come and tag your ass in practice, and you would know exactly what it was about. Who just knocked the crap? Oh, it's okay. All right, Ryan, I get it. Or if you were talking trash, I'd fight you, and that was okay. Well, we got HR departments in broadcasting, right? You can't just haul off and punch somebody because they've been talking trash. So not only is it an identity, but it's an environment change. I mean, you're a snowboarder. You're a former snowboarder. I mean, all of a sudden you're skateboarding. That's a different environment. You know what I'm saying? That's different language. That's different words. So I think one of the things that trips athletes up are that they stay in their identity and they don't realize their environment's changing. One of my great mentors told me, a fish doesn't know it's in water. You're in water when you're in that identity as an athlete, as a former business person, as a pastor, as a teacher, and you really got to work on who you are, and you got to take action. You know, Coach Kubiak, when we won the Super Bowl, he said, hey, the guys who are successful in retirement get into something. And I know I've got guys who called me to buy back the Mercedes-Benz at a lower price, buy back used backpacks, right? And I also know guys who got into something and now run a multi-million-dollar roach extermination company, and who are teachers and who are going to get their law degrees. So I think also in retirement and really in changes and transitions, we want to know that what we're doing is going to pay off. We don't get those answers all the time. And in the NFL, you don't get those answers when you walk on the field, that everything you did the week before is going to help you win that game. You got to just go do it. And so I just advise people to take action, whatever action it is, take action, do something new, try something new, call someone new. And that way you can keep yourself in motion and bump into new people.
That's awesome, man. Super practical advice. I'm not even going to add on because I know I'm going to be pressed for time and I want to ask you a few more questions. One of the things that I really loved about your bio, and when I was reading up about the book, you know, you write, you know, you believe that together we can change the world, that it is our right to be extraordinary, that when we embrace that right, we create positive change in the world, and through our commitment to educate ourselves, invest in our communities, and act on our passions, real change happens. That is a very profound paragraph. I attempt to write things like that with Zen Athlete and things like that to get that precise. If you did that all your own, like it's beautiful, it's very intentional and important. So I just want to commend you on that writing and that intention, because I know what it takes to get that specific. What I wanted to ask was, I touched on it a little bit earlier. How do we improve the world? You know, what do you see in sport or in mindset, or how do you see this world becoming a better place? You know, either using sport in general, getting involved in communities, or, you know, the motive behind that sentence.
Yeah, well, I can tell, like, one time after we won the Super Bowl, I was signing some autographs, and this older woman said, you know, thank you for being a good Christian boy and not one of those terrorist Muslims. I said, wow. I said, well, hey, do you like the Denver Broncos? She's like, of course, that's why I'm here. I'm like, do you like that we won the Super Bowl? She's like, I love every one of you who brought a Super Bowl to us. I said, well, here's the thing, ma'am. I am Muslim, but I'm really happy that you came, and I'm happy that you're excited that we won a Super Bowl for you. And so with sport, you get to make these bridges and have these conversations, you know. But my thing about changing the world is that it's going to change anyways, right? And either we're going to be a part of it or not. And if you're not, you better not complain. You know, I do a lot of speaking like you. And one of the things I tell young black athletes, and I forgive me for my language, but I say, if you do not graduate with the degree, you get to shut the fuck up about anything that happens, because you're cowarding out when you have an opportunity to get a degree. I mean, you got to be honest with people. We're going to change the world. Either we're going to get to gender equity or we're not. Either African Americans and minorities are going to become CEOs and have skills that need to be hired and be a part of teams, or we're not. But tell you what's not going to happen is anything if we sit on our butts and do anything about it. And part of it is believing that we have the right, not just the ability, but the right to be extraordinary. I have the right to be in a boardroom. I have the right to ask a question. I have the right to contribute. And if you want to take that away from me, well, okay, I got my mindset here. Okay, well, I didn't get that job. Well, what can I do? Well, I can stay here and work. I can look for another job. I can build another skill, so the next time that job comes up, I can get it because I have an added skill. I can work as though I did get that job, right? I can hire people underneath me so that the next time that they hire somebody, they have to hire somebody of a diverse candidate. You know, I've been asked to be a board member on a couple of organizations. And I told one of them, I'd love to support you, but you need to have 3 female members on your board. Well, you know, if you don't want my participation, great. But now I'm making a choice to change the world and to change the groups that want to be associated together and do work together. Well, let's really do work, and let's mean it when we say it. So my big thing with mindset is, once you accept that you have the right to be extraordinary, you know, it's on you to do the education. You have to have a skill people want, a skill that contributes, a skill that brings value. But then also you start with your community. I do a radio show here in Denver, right? I love being a part of the Denver community here. And then you got to act on your passions, whether that's surfing, snowboarding, My wife's an artist. Like, just do that. Be great at it and know you have the right to be extraordinary at it. And anybody who tells you different is just a step you step on the way all the way up.
That's awesome, man. It's so on point, and I really love the wording. You have the right to be extraordinary. It reminds me of this quote, and maybe someone out there will get the exact quote, but it's something like, just like the trees and the sun, like you have every right to exist here on the planet. And it's interesting that whatever's happening culturally, and I've looked at enough conspiracy stuff. I'm just really interested in mindset and persuasion and how things are set up, right? Like the whole fashion, you got to look this way, you got to be this smart, you got to get this car. Nobody can afford a Mercedes, man. I've been talking about it. People are going to get annoyed with me, but I just bought a Volvo. It's $1,200 and I'm driving and I am grateful. I used to have a Volkswagen Touareg when I worked in cars and it was baller and it was great, but I'm driving and I'm stoked. But when I was younger, I had to have the nice car, and I probably will one day, but it's like the value like around that. So I don't have the right to be valuable because my car is $1,200. You know, that's a shit car, you know, or I am stoked right? and I can go snowboarding and I can sleep in the back now. And then I can go crush the mountains. Like, it's a whole different mindset. So,
or you own that car and you have no payment. So totally. When you go get that ski pass at the Aspen ski thing for the weekend, it's like $400, man. That's crazy. That's crazy. You know, you can do it. The cat with the Benz is waiting for a ride at the bus and borrowing someone's skis and snowboard because you own your car. You know what I'm saying? You own that thing.
Yeah, man. And it, you know, it's like what we're like, and it's so curious, like why we don't feel valuable, you know, why we need all this external material. And that's like, when you look at any teaching on like ascension or like enlightenment, it's moving out of the material. It's a whole different space. Not that materialism is bad. You're just in a certain space, and to get to a little bit more mental freedom. Like, you have this whole planet. Just look at like a dolphin roaming the ocean. You have that opportunity as a human. Probably you have to let go a lot of the stuff you think is as important, and it's not as important, and it's taking up all your time to get the stuff that's not important. If you just want like a regular watch that tells time, you can get it at Byway for $1. But if you want, you know, one that's like 20 grand and you flash people and you try to blind them with your bling all the time, you could do that, but it's going to be a lot of effort to get that. You know what I mean? And you could go.
And people will call your bluff on it, you know. And I always tell people it's okay to like nice things, just don't be nice things. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yep. Like, you don't know what kind of car I drive, and here's the thing: it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? What kind of value do I bring? And then one of the things in the NFL, you know, I tell guys, how many cars can you drive at the same time? You know, people want to have multiple cars. It's like, well, unless you have a need for it, what are you doing? You know what I mean? But like you said, it's a total different mindset. And we got to make sure, you know, that we walk that fine line of enjoyment, but not becoming the things that we buy. Because like you said earlier, you can buy that new Benz, but you're still going to have those problems when you get in that Benz that you didn't address because you didn't work on you and your mindset and your ability.
Yeah, man, I couldn't have said it better. So on point. You can have the nice things, but it's not going to like you fix anything. And yeah, you can only drive one car. I'm going to have a nice ass car when I'm older, I assure you. And but also when you get one, they also go way too fast. I've been in a Ferrari, I've been in Viper, I've been in a few. I sold cars for a while. You can't drive them anywhere. They go like 200 instantly when you punch it. You just do the racetrack every second weekend and give her. But what I wanted to get to, you brought up an important point, and I struggle with this and how to do it like as compassionately as I can. I went to the Parliament of World Religions. I grew up a Christian, and this podcast is about spirituality. And I really want to be careful and to say, look, I don't care what religion you are, atheist, whatever it could be. That's okay. That's not what I'm trying to get at. But when I go to the Parliament of World Religions and I see these different things, there are some times where we're using religion to like make something else okay. Do you know what I mean? Right. Like that lady is like, oh, I'm a Christian. Like, how many Christians are Catholics? Like the Catholic Church, you know, if you're Catholic, it's fine. I know great Catholics. Yeah, I love them. Right. But the Catholic Church did indeed massacre millions of Native American people. And it's still a problem today. And that's like an institutional thing. It's not a personal thing. But what a religious person, I value them and I love the communities that are created. And if you look at the principles of what the prophets were saying or the masters or whatever, they're very similar. But we get messed up as a society where we start to take it literal, and then it becomes a competition, and then there has to be this opposition rather than seeking understanding. And that's why I like people who are religious, and I have respect for them, because they're seeking a better life. They're seeking a connection with spirit. But it can get hairy, and right, you're a Muslim, like just go, you're in the States, like, oh dear, you know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know if I'm really forming a question on this, but it's like, how do you feel about like the state of like maybe religious affairs? Like, what does it mean to be a Muslim, and how can we create more understanding rather than, you go down to the South, right? Go down to the South 40 years ago and be a black Muslim. Like, oh God, it's not
go
safe.
Right now, be a black Muslim. I'll tell you what, yeah.
Yeah, it's not safe. Fuck.
Well, the big things for me, and I love, I think it was Sheikh Hamza, one of the sheikhs that got people, spiritual leaders that I follow, scholars in Islam. And he said, religious person is someone who believes in hell. A spiritual person is someone who's been to hell and doesn't want to go back, right? So to me, you always want to build commonalities. Whether you're Christian and I'm Muslim, we can both talk about our love for snow, right? And I talk about how, like, a bird goes to a turtle. I'm better than you because I can fly. And the turtle says, well, I'm better than you because I can swim. And then, here's another version. The turtle, or the bird comes to the turtle and says, I'm better than you because I can fly. And the turtle says, you can talk too? You know what I mean? Like, where do you want to go? It's all a choice and where you take this. And one of the things that I realized is that, I wasn't brought up to hate. I wasn't taught to hate. I have very different colors, and we have different, we have immigrants in my family, and we have, just strong cultures in my family, but different cultures. And so to me, I wasn't taught hate. So I try not to react to where people are, but try and build a bridge to where people can go. And I think you do that through, whether you agree or disagree with even religion. Can we talk about being a parent? Can we talk about whatever city we're in, the traffic we're in? Can we laugh together so we can see each other as human beings? And I think that's really how we begin to change the world. Build those commonalities, laugh together, so that we can build bonds that are impervious to pain, impervious to difference, and we can start celebrating the contributions each of us can make.
Yeah, man, I think that's really well put. And I totally agree. And I think that if more of us would seek like understanding rather than, this is the wrong way, it's just whatever way that you're expressing in that way, then that's it. Like I had Paris Robinson on. I don't know if I'm just releasing it now. And this guy grew up like a gangster in Virginia. And I guess I had the most murders per capita at the time. And he was selling drugs, addicted to drugs, went to jail, did all kinds of crazy stuff. And he goes back to jail. He's addicted to drugs. It's just like the story is nuts. Now he's in a wheelchair. And I'm just like, oh my God. But like the level of like spiritual, like wisdom he has now from going through his journey is very on point. It's just like now he knows because he chose a very difficult road. But if you look at him as he's going through that road, it's like, oh, you're a drug dealer. You're the worst of the worst. And you should whatever craziness, right? You don't know what someone's going through and whatever their belief may be. But if we seek understanding rather than imposing another view, you know what 100%. I mean? I think it's something that that's what we need to change the world. Because I don't care what you believe. You know what I mean? You can be a Muslim and you can be a good Muslim. You could be a Muslim and you can be a total asshole. And it's like, it has nothing to do with your religion. It's just like, turns out you're a dickhead. And
here's the thing. We got to share the planet together anyway, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, so why not find somewhere where we can talk about and get to know each other? Why not find that ground instead of staying on opposite sides of the river? I'm from the Twin Cities, St. Paul, Minnesota, and we have a lot of bridges in town. And the thing about bridges is that there wasn't always a bridge. There were people on either side, but it takes people on both sides to do something to build those bridges that then bring commerce, that then bring a sharing of ideas, that bring a growth as a society. And we just got to build more bridges, especially now.
100%, man. And I think that when you build those bridges and you seek to build, and understand and see the value in someone else, it doesn't mean you have to believe their way, but there's beauty in all of it and there's truth in all of it. And so when you go with that mindset, you're becoming a better person and you're influencing your community and you're being the example of what you choose to represent through your choices in communication, regardless of a banner, Canadian, American, black, white, religious, atheist, it doesn't matter. It's like you being you and just doing your best, because at the end of the day, when we get down to it, nobody really knows what's going on. It's so confusing here. We are an illusion. You know what I mean? This is an illusion, and quantum physics is a whole nother thing, but we can choose how we act and interact with our environment, and we have choice and intention. There's some things we do get to choose and influence. So that's super important to just consider that, how you're acting rather than how everyone else is acting. There's like trillions of different ways to act or believe. I want to be mindful of your time. I know it's traffic and you got kids and you got to do dad stuff. But man, this has just been such a privilege and an honor to speak with you. I'm so grateful for the work you're doing and the intention you're setting and having that book out there. Is there anything that you wish that I had asked or that you want to chat about before we close? And feel free to go on as long as you wish.
Man, I just wanted to reflect the gratitude back to you, man. I love on your podcast the different people that you get on your podcast. I love the last episode that I listened to with the Native American elder, and you have all different types of people. And it just is it's so great to know that other people are seeking and learning to build and seeking to build bridges and learn about other ways to think and be. And I just appreciate your contributions, man. And thank you for having me on your podcast, brother.
Oh, dude, it was the pleasure was all mine. I want to ask you one last thing. What would you give for like your last piece of advice for just like the youth out there, anybody listening to, have a little bit more peace and a little bit more contentment in their lives?
Celebrate every win. One of the things we did when we won the Super Bowl is we even celebrated losing, because one of the hardest things to do in the NFL is to lose. So I tell you, celebrate every win, especially if you're going to want to be elite. You want to be great. It's easy to say, I'm not there yet. I haven't done the work. I need an extra piece. But even when you get your cup of coffee today or tomorrow, like what did it take for you to get that cup of coffee? Not just for you to wake up that morning and go to your place, but, you had experiences. You had to believe in yourself at some point on the road to get that money to get a coffee. Celebrate that win. Celebrate getting coffee. Celebrate waking up. Celebrate the love you have in your life. There's wins all around us every day, and we got to recognize those so that we know that our ability, we believe in our future, and we can do that by celebrating every win.
Awesome, man. I'm super glad I asked that. That was a really great answer. I appreciate you, man. I look forward to staying in touch and getting your book. Thanks for everything you do, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks, and until next time, my man. Peace.
All right. Yeah, peace. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching. Peace.